All right, so today we're going to dive into something I think we all assume we get, forgiveness. But
Yeah.
what if I told you it wasn't just like this vague good feeling? What if it was like a tool,
Mm.
like a powerful tool? That's actually what we're looking at today based on these YouTube sermons from Strangewit University
Okay.
by this counselor named Andrew. And get this, he approaches forgiveness as a tool.
Interesting.
Yeah, so get ready for some like surprising insights.
All right, I'm ready.
Yeah. So it's really a fascinating take because Andrew reframes forgiveness as something active, like it's strategic
Hmm.
almost. And he says it's the tool God gives us to deal with, well, two of the toughest things in life, when things aren't fair and when we're carrying around the weight of, being offended by someone.
Right, right. Like when you just can't let something go.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what really caught my attention. It's not about feeling
Yeah.
warm and fuzzy. It's about getting something done,
Hmm.
like actually accomplishing something. But Andrew points out that people a lot of times will treat forgiveness as like optional,
Yeah.
like it's a suggestion instead of a command. Why do you think we struggle with that?
Well, I think we all tend to pick and choose which shoulds we follow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we all know we should eat healthy, but I mean, that donut looks pretty good,
Always.
right? So forgiveness, I think, is kind of similar. Like deep down, we know we should do it, but gosh, it just feels hard
Yeah.
and messy. And, to be fair, Andrew's point is, yeah, parts of it are hard, but he makes this really important distinction between the part we're responsible for and the part that God handles.
Right. Yeah. That's where the possible and the impossible parts come in, right? Like we can't magically erase the hurt or make the other person change.
No.
But choosing to forgive, that's an act of obedience we can control.
That's it, yeah. And that's exactly where the power of this tool comes in.
Hmm.
It's like imagine you need to dig a hole. You could try to do it with your bare hands, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to be slow and painful and probably not even work. But, God is offering us a backhoe here,
Okay.
but we've got to be the ones to climb in the driver's seat and
Yeah.
actually use it.
Okay, that's a great analogy. So before we get to actually using this forgiveness tool,
Hmm.
Andrew tackles some really common myths that hold people back.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch. But I think the one that's going to really hit home for our listener today is this idea that forgiving means you have to trust the offender and, you risk getting hurt again.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. I think it makes forgiveness sound so terrifying. Like
Yeah.
you're just opening yourself up for round two of the same pain.
Yeah.
But, Andrew's very clear. This is not what biblical forgiveness requires.
Right. Exactly. You're not like giving them a free pass or saying what they did was okay. Boundaries are still allowed,
Definitely.
even essential in some cases. It's about releasing the grip that offense has on you, not letting them off the hook.
It's a shift in focus.
Yeah.
Like instead of
Let's-
staring at the person who hurt you, you're turning to God and you're saying, this hurts too much.
Yeah.
I can't handle this on my own. I'm giving this to you.
Yeah. And that ties in beautifully with Andrew's heart wall analogy, right? He talks about how when we're hurt, it's natural for like a scab to form on our hearts, just, a way to protect ourselves.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like a natural defense mechanism.
Yeah. But unforgiveness,
Hmm.
it turns those scabs into these huge impenetrable walls.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So they just get thicker and thicker over time.
Yeah. Like imagine God trying to deliver a pizza of blessings and bam, it hits a brick wall.
Oh, no.
And these walls, they don't just block out the good stuff.
Right.
They trap us inside with all that pain and bitterness.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And that's where I think those myths about forgiveness, they really mess us up. They
Mhm.
keep us stuck behind those walls thinking that forgiving is going to make us weaker or something.
Yeah, like it's a vulnerability. So how do we
Sure.
actually start like tearing down these walls? Well, Andrew digs into the why of forgiveness, and it's not just about being nice. He uses that parable of the unforgiving servant from Matthew 18, and it's kind of wild.
Oh, yeah, that's a powerful one. It's about this servant who owes like this huge debt to the king, and the king just forgives it, like wipes the slate clean.
Wow.
But then this servant, he turns around and throws his fellow servant in jail over like a tiny little debt.
Oh, wow.
It's talk about missing the point.
Totally. And the king is furious, right? He's
What is
basically like, look, I showed you incredible mercy. You should have done the same. What a parallel to how God must see our unforgiveness, you know?
That's true.
We've been forgiven so much, but we're still clinging to these tiny debts that other people owe us.
And those debts can be anything, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a friend who betrayed you, or a family member who's always criticizing, or even like
Mhm.
that guy who cut you off in traffic this morning. We hold on to these offenses like they're, I don't know, like prized possessions.
Yeah.
But really, they're just weighing us down.
Right. It's like baggage. And that's why Andrew's point is that unforgiveness doesn't mainly hurt the other person.
Right.
It traps us.
Yeah.
But he also acknowledges that forgiveness isn't always, a quick and easy process.
Oh, for sure.
There are times when we need to like grieve,
Absolutely.
process the hurt before we can even start to forgive.
Yeah. Like he gave this example of a mother whose daughter was killed in a school shooting.
Yeah.
And her first reaction was like anger, hatred towards the shooter.
Mm-hmm.
And Andrew's point was, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's normal to feel those things, especially when you've experienced such a profound loss. Trying to force forgiveness before you've even processed the pain, I mean, that can be harmful.
Yeah. Like it's almost like you're trying to put a bandage over a gaping wound. Yeah.
To clean it out first.
Exactly. Yeah. You got to address the underlying damage before you can even begin to heal. And trying to rush forgiveness, that can lead to what he calls spiritual bypassing, where you're kind of pretending everything's fine when it's clearly not.
Yeah. So acknowledging the hurt is important, but then comes the big question. How do we actually do the forgiveness thing?
Mm-hmm.
Andrew gives us this really helpful framework, a 4-step forgiveness template that anyone can use.
This is like pure gold. And it all starts with being specific. Andrew says, like, vague prayers get vague results. So step 1 is pinpoint the exact offense and how it made you feel.
So like none of that, I forgive everyone for
Right.
everything.
Right.
You got to laser focus in.
Exactly. So you would say something like, Lord, when this person did this specific thing, I felt this specific emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And then step 2 is confession, admitting to God that you've been holding on to this offense, maybe even, kind of nursing it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Like really being honest.
Right.
With yourself and with God. Yeah. And then step 3 is where the real action is.
Right.
The release. Andrew's wording for this is so powerful. He says, I release ownership of this offense to you.
Wow.
Like you're making a conscious decision.
Yeah.
It's an act of your will. You're saying, this hurt, it doesn't have power over me anymore. I'm handing it over. And finally, step 4 is requesting healing.
So we're like admitting we can't do this on our own. We need God's power to heal this wound.
Exactly. So we say something like, please touch this wound and heal it.
It's so simple, but it's so profound. So where does all this forgiveness actually take place? Andrew suggests finding your altar. And I love that because it doesn't have to be like a literal church altar.
Right. It could be your car, your favorite chair, spot in nature.
Anywhere you can get quiet with God.
Yeah, it's about creating that sacred space, to do the work, to put those 4 steps into action.
So, listener, as we finish this deep dive into forgiveness, we're left with this challenge. If forgiveness is a tool, what kind of project are you working on right now that needs it?